What's up, guys? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the market moving forward as we have more data coming out for tomorrow. Not to mention big developments for Tesla stock, but just note that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Weeble link. If you deposit any amount of money, you're guaranteed 12 free stocks. If you deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20. If you deposit $25,000 more, you're guaranteed 75. This offer ends very soon. It ends in just about 4 weeks from now. Anyways, now let's talk about the market. So when it comes to the way the market's moving, the market is trying to rebound a bit. However, I did warn everyone that the market will be forming a top most likely very soon. I'm not saying it's in yet, but it should be doing it quite soon, and I do believe there's more downside to come. Now, as far as Tesla goes, we're trying to hold our 50 EMA, but if we lose this, there could be another attempt to get back down to about 244. I still see a risk of that looking at the share price, so you want to be very careful with Tesla for the time being. However, even if Tesla does dip a little bit more, that's completely fine because I believe approaching the robotaxi event, if not after it, there will be some big upside coming anyways. So this could be another opportunity. I'll talk more about this in just a couple of minutes. Let me first go over these numbers again. I went over this in my morning video. What happened during Tesla's third quarter production deliveries report? So what happened was in total, they deployed about 6.9 gigawatt hours of energy storage products, which is great, very, very great overall. However, it's a slight decrease compared to what we saw last quarter. Now, that's no surprise during this period. We tend to see big increases during Q2 and also during Q4. So let's hope for a very, very strong Q4 for that, but still not too bad. How about for the rest of their numbers? We have deliveries that just came out. So we saw about 440,000, a little bit under that, deliveries for the Model 3 and Model Y. We saw about just under 23,000 for other models, putting the total deliveries at 462,890. Now, some sources said they missed, other sources said they met. Either way, it wasn't really a big beat, and depending on which consensus you're looking at, it looks like Tesla barely met expectations. I say that because when I was looking at the expectations yesterday, I saw that the majority of sources were saying 462,500 was the expectation. Others are saying it was about 463,000. But honestly, guys, it doesn't matter. They were very, very close anyways. It wasn't really enough for the share price to just continue to pump, but still not bad numbers compared to what we saw before, and considering we're still in a high interest rate environment. Now, for production, I want to mention that the Model 3 and Model Y saw about 443,668, with other models at about a little bit over 26,000. This put our total production to just under 470,000, which is not bad whatsoever. So nice production numbers, nice growth overall. I would have hoped to see at least 470,000 deliveries, but it's okay. We still ended up doing better than what we saw last year. There's still growth, and I still think Tesla's in a good place for the end of the year for the annual report as well. So good job by the Tesla team. They did a very, very good job at getting these deliveries up. Despite the hurdles and hardships, Tesla still did well. Now, for news about the markets for tomorrow, I want to call out something very important. Just know that tomorrow is going to be Thursday, October 3rd, 2024. 1 hour before the market opens, we have minor data coming out. We have initial jobless claims and continuing jobless claims. May cause some volatility, but nothing too crazy. 15 minutes after the market opens, we have the S&P Global Composites and Services PMI reports. May cause more volatility, but the main time for volatility is going to be 10 a.m. So at 10 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, that's 30 minutes after market open tomorrow. We have the ISM services business activity, employment, new orders, and prices all coming out. This is very important data for this sector. It's going to give us more insights on how business activity is looking, employment, and all these different things. So this is going to be very big for the markets, may cause high volatility, and we'll see how this ends up going. We also have Bostic giving a speech alongside a few more other Fed speakers, and then some bill auctions. But the main time for volatility is going to be 15 minutes and 30 minutes after market open, mainly at 10 o'clock a.m. Look for volatility tomorrow. The market is still greedy overall, as we saw buyers defending the position that we were in. We didn't necessarily see the market tank. It actually tried to rebound a bit. It tanked in the morning only to rebound, but there still is a risk of us dipping lower. I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. Momentum remains at greed. It's slowing down a little bit. We're not at extremes right now, though, in terms of that. The puts and call option ratio is still at extreme greed. Usually when it's at these lows, right, this is because we're seeing a lot of puts being closed, a lot of call buying. This is when the market tends to top, and I think that's going to be happening very soon. Volatility remains neutral. We're still in the middle. We'll have to see how things go as we have a gap to fill above. I'm going to be very, very patient nonetheless. Other factors out there, we also have some news coming out involving Israel. So, with the whole situation right now, Israel is now saying that it's planning retaliation against Iran. So be very careful, guys, in case there is some big news that comes out tomorrow or whenever this ends up happening. This is huge, and it may have an effect on the markets and oil prices. Don't forget that this has a history that goes back quite a while. So I'm not just talking about as if that this just started. So there's a lot that goes to this. I'm not trying to go over all the details here. That's not what my job is. I just want to let you guys know that that's what's happening in the world right now, and tensions remain high. I also want to mention that dock workers are continuing to go on strike. We have about 36 ports between Maine and Texas, so from the Gulf Coast to the East Coast, and they are going on these strikes, which could cause more shortages and also higher prices. So we'll see how this affects things. We also have, about 45,000 people involved, so it's pretty big. We'll see how that goes. Uh, More news about Tesla. I just want to mention that after deliveries were quite decent for Tesla, they weren't bad, they weren't great, they're just in the middle. We had this new piece of news that came out. So apparently, McDonald's has just posted a bag with 1010 on it, and Elon Musk has followed as senior marketing director of the company. So a little bit interesting. Could it be that there's about to be a partnership between them that's about to be announced? That would be pretty big news. We'll see. I did hear some people talking about how there's a possibility that if people go to like McDonald's and if Tesla has their charging stations there just to incentivize sales on both ends, that would be pretty cool. Not a guarantee, guys. This could just be wishful thinking. Who knows? I'm not promising anything about this. I'm just saying that I'm seeing a lot of news about this, a lot of talk about this on Twitter. So it could be pretty cool, but it doesn't guarantee anything. All right. So once again, about Tesla's deliveries, they did relatively well. I'm very proud of the whole team that did what they had to do, and I can't wait to see what the future holds. So I want to say that Tesla's in a very good position for the end of the year. Hopefully, they continue to get another strong quarter. I think Q4 should be promising, and we could be looking for a new record for the year. So let's hope that Tesla does well again. Tesla also saw about 93.5 million in volume. That's a little bit below average, but still not too bad. Short volume did go up a little bit. It did slightly increase. And then we also have Cantor Fitzgerald giving Tesla a neutral rating. We have the price price ratio going down a little bit as Tesla lost a little bit of strength today. And then historically, Thursdays are known for being green about 48% of the time. They're one of the weakest days of the week for Tesla. We tend to see more volatility at 9 a.m. and also around this 1 p.m. period. And then October does historically tend to be a weaker month for the markets in Tesla. Now, for Tesla, things are a little bit different because we have the Robotaxi event, not to mention earnings. The Robotaxi event is going to be the next major catalyst in about 8 days from now. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. I think Tesla's share price is going to go up approaching it. And maybe after we could be looking for a big squeeze depending on how it goes. For now, although Tesla's dipping and it does have some potential for downside looking at the pattern, I just want to say that the Robotaxi event is going to be the next big catalyst. So I'll be watching for that as well. So that being said, that's enough about all this talk about the markets. Let's now just focus on, I'm sorry, more talk about the news. Enough about that. Let's focus now and talk about what's happening with the share prices. So for Tesla, we have 248 is the main support at the 50 EMA. If this fails, I'm going to be looking for a target of 244 all over again, and then the lows from the day. If we bounce off this, we're looking for a rebound for 250. If we break that, we're looking for 252, then 255, a little bit under that at the 20 EMA. Overall, the 4 hours looking a little bit weaker. I am seeing some downside potential in this. We could rebound in the morning to the 250s and continue to fall. But this chart is still showing some weakness for the timing. There could be a continuation down to about 244, which is completely fine. I also want to mention that Tesla has a gap to fill down here at 239. There's also another gap down here at 229. So there's a possibility we might be coming down to fill one of these gaps eventually. So there might be a little bit of a dip coming to Tesla, but it's not the end of the world because once we get closer to the Robotaxi event, we could be looking for a big bounce. So I think that one factor that could affect the way Tesla's moving would be the broader markets. I think the markets do have a risk of downside, and this could be because of what we're seeing going on with global political events and also around the USA because of the strikes. So there could be some catalysts that drag the market lower and that could drag Tesla down as well. So I do see the risk to the downside here. We could rebound first and continue to fall all the way down to that 244 area, if not lower. So be careful. To be bullish, you want to break 255, but it doesn't look as probable. It looks like it's going to pop in and dip a little bit more. So I'm still seeing weakness on Tesla stock. On SPY, we are trying to rebound, and I think there may be an attempt to rebound, but just know we have our resistance at the 20 EMA at 570, and also the 0.786 fib level happens to be around the low 572s. My gut tells me we either go up to 570 then reject, or we go a little bit higher to 572 and then we get that rejection. One of those two will likely lead to rejection. I still think that SPY is this cap to fill below, and we're going to be looking for a move back down towards the 563 area, maybe below that 562 to 563. So it's very simple. These are the levels to watch for. I think SPY could attempt to rebound a little bit to 570, if not 572. Then we're going to be looking for some kind of rejection after that. A move right back down is the most likely case. If we lose 567.75 to 50 EMA, we're looking for 565. If that fails, let's look for a dump all the way down to the low 560s. Look for a rebound temporarily into the 570, if not 572 area, one of those levels before we end up getting that rejection. That's what I tend to favor right now. For ES, it's the same thing essentially. So I calculated that we have 5780s our resistance, just under that we have the 20 EMA, so 5775 to 5780 is our resistance zone. If we break that, we could get closer to 5800. Technically, it could push a little bit. I'm not as sure about that, but I'm not really too positive about that. But that's going to be the next level because that's where we have the 0.786 retracement almost exactly. So I think that 5780 is where we were going to be topping, if not 5800 in this range somewhere. This tries to push a little bit more. Then we're going to be looking for a big rejection. And over the next couple of weeks, within a week or two, I think that this is going to be coming all the way down to fill this gap into the 5636 area. So I anticipate downside. We may pop a little bit higher to 5780, if not 5800, then reject and start dumping all the way down to the lower 5700s. That's the most likely case in my personal opinion. For Nvidia, it's the same thing. It may attempt to rebound towards 122. If we hit that, we'll see if 120 holds. If not 122, we could be pushing to this range. Then look for a rejection. If 118 fails us, we're looking for 117. My gut tells me we may pop and then drop, and downside does seem very, very probable. For others out there, we have Bitcoin. Bitcoin's once again rejecting right over here. If we can't hold 60,000, we're looking for a dump all the way down towards 59,250. We also have this resistance around 61,000, so I think that there is a risk of this dipping lower, and the odds favor more downwards pressure. So watch for that very carefully. For NQ, NQ has resistance around this 20,100 area, not to mention 20,200. If we hit 20,100, this could reject, or if we go a little bit higher, we could technically get closer to our 0.786 to 20,200. Either way, it doesn't matter, guys. Whether we go a little bit higher, or a little bit, if we're up like so a 20,100, 20,200 doesn't matter. I still think this is going to top very, very soon. There's going to be a big rejection coming, and I think eventually over the next few weeks we will come down to fill this gap all the way down to the 19,400 area. So there's going to be more downside that's very imminent. For the QQQ, I see the same thing. We have a head and shoulders like structures, a little bit of weakness here. We have resistance at 484 and 486. If we lose 481.5, we're looking for a dump back down to 478. And if that fails us, we have the gap to fill at 475. So my gut is telling us that we're going to try to push a little higher for 484, maybe 486. That's a possibility, but a bit of a stretch. But I think we're going to top very, very soon at one of these levels. So we could push a little bit higher for 484 to 486 in this range. And then we're going to be looking for a rejection and move back down towards 480. And then eventually we have this cap to fill down here. So I'll be watching to see if that ends up being the case. For Aapl, we have resistance at 227.5, not to mention 229. We have support at 226. If that fails us, we're looking for this imbalance fill to 224. Also, if that fails us, we have this cap to fill down here at 222. That's where we have our 200 EMA. So look for a rebound for 228 or so. Then we'll see if we get this big rejection and move back down. I think Aapl will attempt to rebound a little bit higher for 229 plus, but then we might be looking for that big rejection later on. I still favor that view because of what's happening with the strikes. With that being said, let's go over the rest of these. I'm going to try to be a little bit fast for the rest of these, so please bear with me. Palantir has 37.5 as our resistance. It is possible it goes a little bit higher, but be careful at 38. That's where this imbalance happens to be. If we break 38.5, we remain more bullish. If we come short of that, we could get a big rejection. So look for 38. It might get very close to that. If we reject, we're coming back down to the 36s. So that's what I think is very probable. I think we revisit the 36s. We could pop first and reject, and we'll see how things end up going. For Supermicro, we could attempt to rebound a little bit higher. We'll have to see what happens with this 42 area. If we hold above that, we're looking for basically 43 as our next potential targets. If 43, if we hit this, we could attempt to reject off that. I think there's a very good chance we do that. So I think 43.17 is coming, then we could reject. So after we get a little rebound, there could be a rejection after that. And we'll be returning back down to 40 in my opinion. Rivian may attempt to push for about 11.03. That's where our 20 EMA happens to be. I think this is likely coming, so look for a little rebound before we try to reject. So watch for that as well. For SoFi, we're attempting to rebound, but look at 7.8 as resistance. If this rejects, we could be dipping lower. If this breaks, we're looking for basically 7.9. I think we push, excuse me, I think we push a little bit for 7.9. Then we could be looking for a rejection again as we're making lower highs. I also want to mention that on SoFi, the daily chart does have a gap. The last time I checked it. So we want to be a little bit careful with this gap down here. I think we will eventually revisit the 7.5 area. Look for a pop and a dip back down is the most likely case. For the Russell 2000, we have a lot of gaps to fill below, but just know that this is attempting to hold up. I think we could retest 218, if not 220, that range, but then we might be looking for a rejection off 218 to start dipping back down towards 215 or below. We also have a gap to fill down to 212, so I anticipate more downside. Look for a pop and drop. For AMD, we have resistance at 161.36 and also 158 is our support. We could be hitting 161.36 and rejecting. If 158 fails us, we dip. I think we will eventually dip down to fill this gap, but we could pop a bit first for 161, and we'll see if we reject off that as we're making lower highs right here. So there's still a strong possibility of that happening. For ARM, we look more bearish as we're making lower highs, lower highs, and lower highs. It may attempt to get closer to about 140 before it tries to reject again. And I still see more downside potential. We have these gaps to fill below and this imbalance over here, which is still unfilled. So I think we push for 140, then reject down to 127 is the most likely case. For Coinbase, we look a little bit more bearish, just like Bitcoin. It could technically get up to about 171. It's possible, maybe a bit of a stretch. 170 to 171 could come in a rejection, but I still anticipate us coming all the way down to fill this gap, all the way down to 148. So I'd look for a pop and drop and a big rejection as the most likely case. For Amazon, we're stuck in the middle. We have 186 as a resistance and a 182 as our support. We could test 186 and reject and start tipping back down to 184. But I see a risk of downside for that for 182 as well. Look for 186 and a rejection and move down. So watch and see how things end up going. For Meta, we have support at 570.92. If we lose 570, we're looking for basically this imbalance towards 565. I think we could pop for 575, then reject and start tipping lower. So watch to see if that ends up being the case. So be very, very patient and mindful of that. If 570 fails us, we're going to be looking for a much bigger dip. So I think Meta is going to try to test 570 tomorrow. If we bounce, we could see a temporary pop to 575 first before we see that continuation lower. But I still favor that this could be dipping off this bearish divergence that has been developing, and it could lead to more downside as we have this gap down here. So look for a little bit of a dip to 570, a rebound, and a drop as the most likely case. For Microsoft, we are looking a little bit weaker right over here. We're continuing to remain more bearish. We're looking for basically 420 as resistance, and then we have this imbalance down here around this 414 area. I think this may be dipping all the way down to 414. We're not doing a good job at holding up. We are seeing some buyers trying to get it back above 418, so it could pop for 420 tomorrow morning, but I anticipate it's going to continue down to 414 as it looks more bearish. For Google, we look a little bit more bearish. We're rejecting right over here at this resistance. We have support to watch for at 166. If that fails us, we're looking for 165, then 164. My gut tells me 166 is coming, so we'll see what kind of reaction we get. For four more, we have DJT. This is looking a little bit more bearish. We're looking for 15.5. If that fails us, we're looking for 15 flat, so look for more downside. For the VIX, we're attempting to rebound. It's possible we dip a little bit more for the VIX. I think it could dip a little bit if the market tries to pop a bit more, but we have this gap to fill up towards 21.96. And also there's another gap to fill up here towards the 36 area. So I think the VIX will eventually fill all these gaps. There's another one all the way up here. We might be approaching a big spike in implied volatility because the market has more downside potential. I still hold that view, guys. My view has not changed, so I want to be very, very open about that. The 10-year treasury yield is dipping. We have this gap to fill below, so we could be dipping towards 3.75. We also have another gap down here and here, so it could be dipping. The dollar index is also dipping a little bit, but it could dip a little bit more to 101.5, and we'll see if we bounce. But I think that the dollar will eventually try to break out of this bullish divergence. This is a large bullish divergence that's been forming. So it might try to break these highs soon, and the dollar may get a breakout as the market dips. That's another big factor. With that being said, guys, for Tesla, we look a little bit more bearish right now. We'll have to see if 248 could hold. If not, we're at risk of dipping to 244. Don't be surprised if we see some downside, but don't worry, guys. It's not the end of the world. Tesla could rebound approaching the robotaxi event. So this could just give us another opportunity. With that being said, I just want to say I really appreciate you guys so much for listening. I hope you guys have a great day, night, or evening. And please note one more thing. I don't always know what's going to happen with the news overnight involving the whole situation around the globe. But I want to say this, okay? I still believe there's downside coming by the end of October. I think the market has a bigger correction that's coming, and that's going to just brew in a nice buying opportunity. It's not a crash forever. It's just a nice buying opportunity before another spike for the end of the year after the election ends up taking place, in my personal opinion. So I'm more bearish leading into the election. And then a little bit after the election, the market should either bottom if it doesn't bottom before the election. So during one of those periods, we should bottom right before the election or maybe a little bit after. And then we should be looking for a big rally towards the second half of November going into December. That's what my view is. Just in a nutshell, with that being said, I will see you guys very soon, tomorrow before the market opens to discuss the data, initial jobless claims, and more data. We'll see how things go. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys soon tomorrow. Tesla to the moon. The long term is very bright despite these short term fluctuations, and peace out.